Day 6. As always, hydrate your vocal cords. Turn your timer on, 15 minutes. Oh, I didn't set mine to 15 yet. 15, here we go. 15 minutes, start. We ended yesterday with this sentence. If we are repeatedly denied the assurance of people around us, the fear of getting things wrong, making mistakes, and ultimately being rejected or disliked by others begins to settle in, and we can begin to fear that we don't belong. This need for belonging is primal, and if it goes unmet, it can cause all sorts of anxieties. I remember my teenage self wanting to comfort Maggie and to let her know that she didn't need her brother's approval. I wanted to support Maggie and show her how he was holding her back. But my heart was aching for Maggie, or was I trying to comfort myself? I was so decisive when it came to what Maggie needed, yet at the same time, I was unaware of how I was standing in my own way. It was like looking into a mirror, and it made me realize that I was holding myself back. I asked myself, how can I stop this desperate need for approval? The first step was really the awareness and recognition of it. The second step was practicing self-compassion and reinforcing my own value, which was not based on anyone else's scale of how much they liked me or disliked me, or how likely they were to reject my views. The mill on the floss was a torch in the dark for me. It revealed to me that I had an inner life that had previously been plagued by anxiety and fear. I learned that this was normal. I also realized how vulnerable and conflicted we all are. Early adulthood. Reading continued to be a sanctuary for me in early adulthood. I loved that books afforded me the opportunity to live vicarious existences in imagined woods, where the meaning of life could be tested in a safe way, incubating us from the trials of real life, which often felt daunting, difficult, or fatiguing. These books were a portal to a safer world, one that was more compassionate and understanding, a place where I could sit with my pain, let it be held, so that I could look at it with clear eyes again and eventually release it. In hindsight, I have lived half my life in the pages of books, relying on them to put my real life into perspective. Sometimes doing this has shifted how I view the real world. I realize that living in these two worlds side by side has enabled me to live a life enchanted by reading, and it has helped me heal when life's cracks have abruptly showed up. I wouldn't have it any other way. In 1996, my parents, my brother and I immigrated to the UK, where I completed my A-levels at a school in Herefordshire. Despite literature being my first love, I went on to study mathematics at university before landing at a major auditing firm and then moving into investment banking. Just a few years of working in the banking industry took a huge toll on my health. My job as a risk analyst involved long hours, and while it was interesting, it was by no means fulfilling, and no amount of money could justify the level of stress it caused. I found that I wanted to swap advising investment banking clients on how to manage their risk to maximize profit for advising people on how to manage their pain for emotional freedom. I knew I wanted to pursue something more meaningful than finance, and I had always been drawn towards understanding people, what makes them tick, how they work, and how they can improve their lives. So I decided to study psychodynamic counseling. As I mentioned earlier, undergoing personal therapy is a prerequisite when you're training to be a counsellor. So this also meant that for the first time, I would have to openly share my thoughts with a stranger. Once I was introduced to bibliotherapy, I began to lean increasingly on literature and poetry as my form of emotional support. In between therapy sessions, I would turn to literature as a prompt for journaling and self-reflection, literary journaling, and this quickly became a daily ritual. Literary journaling, how it works. Literary journaling requires us to keep a journal of all the books we've read and the impact they've had on us. Journaling is one of the best ways to connect with ourselves, reflect on our emotions and thoughts, and gain some clarity amidst the day-to-day stresses and strains of life. It brings a feeling of calm and helps us to make sense of the world and ourselves. Writing down the emotions a piece of literature triggers, good or bad, can be very beneficial, particularly when working through negative feelings. As author and theatrical physicist Leonard Mlodinow discusses in his book, Emotional, The New Thinking About Feelings, expressing unwanted negative emotion helps us to relieve it. It has the same effect as increasing your brain activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for key cognitive abilities such as executive function, including decision-making and problem-solving, as well as creativity and perseverance. And decreasing activity in the amygdala, it's in the middle here, the part responsible for processing fearful and threatening stimuli by reducing the fear and anxiety response, leading to better emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is an essential part of daily functioning and well-being, and it involves being able to navigate both our positive and negative emotions in a helpful way that does not leave us feeling overwhelmed or so consumed by emotion that we cannot function optimally on a daily basis. This results in better decision-making and resilience and prevents the exacerbation of mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression. It also allows us to navigate conflict and communicate effectively. Writing about upsetting experiences has also been shown to reduce high blood pressure, lessen chronic pain symptoms, improved mood and sleep, and boost immune function. As Shakespeare writes in Macbeth, "Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the o'erfraught heart and bids it break." When we journal, we are encouraged to investigate why a particular character, situation, or even style of writing might provoke in us a sense of joy, disgust, trepidation, fury, comfort, and so on. Reading can bring out emotions that we haven't felt for some time, so it's important to journal in order to process them. In doing so, we can pay closer attention to our emotions, get to know ourselves better, and delve deeper into our colourful inner worlds. Literature affords us a certain power in terms of what it enables us to explore, access, and draw on. The goal of literary journaling is to unleash this power and bring forth the unconscious into the conscious. It offers a different approach to self-therapy, one which, if leveraged correctly, can offer new ways of seeing and being, allowing us to adopt a more flexible approach to life's daily challenges and to build resilience and inner confidence. A question I'm often asked is, how do I start? There is no right or wrong answer, but I've found the following 3-step process incredibly effective. 1, select literature that you truly connect with. Is there an area in your life that you'd like to work on or explore further, or an issue you are currently facing? For example, loss, anxiety, imposter syndrome, boundary setting. Is there a movement that you are particularly interested in, or a cultural issue that you are curious about? Is there a book you're currently reading that you're connecting with, or something that you've read in the past that has truly moved you, or that you want to find out more about? This could be the subject, the author, or the characters, anything. Find a book that addresses the above and consider the following. What genres do I enjoy reading? Fiction, such as historical fiction, literary fiction, mystery. Non-fiction, such as memoir, biography, essays, poetry. What writing style do I prefer? How much time can I devote to reading each week? If you're running low on time, consider a short story or essay collection versus a longer novel or memoir. What reading medium is the book available in? Don't feel constrained to physical editions. as you may prefer to opt for an ebook or an audiobook instead. If you have a short list in mind, you may want to narrow it down by asking yourself whether all the books you are considering provide the level of diversity or representation that you are looking for. You might also find the Matching Reader Personality to Genre quiz on page 92 to 95 of this book helpful. Once you have chosen a book, follow steps 2 and 3 below to kickstart the journaling process. Now, second point, highlight, journal, and reflect. Highlight passages or make notes of any lines you've loved. Write down how they made you feel and consider the possible reasons for why the text resonated with you. You may want to sleep on your thoughts and come back to them the next day to see if you still feel the same way. If you do, then this might be something you need to explore further, potentially in therapy or with a book that covers this issue in more detail. Alternatively, discuss what you've read with a friend or family member, as this can be a good way to organize your thoughts, and they may offer a new perspective that can lead to more prompts. Discussing these in a bibliotherapy or therapy session might also invite further insight. On the other hand, if you've taken some time to reflect on your journal entry and your thoughts have now changed, ask yourself, what exactly has changed? Have you reached a resolution? What does this tell you about yourself? Have you learned a lesson? Do you need to explore a new avenue, or are you ready to move on? Third point, consolidate. Consolidating your thoughts and feelings will bring a conclusion that's often forgotten when we journal. This is a significant part of the journaling process. Think of it as a way to tie together all the thoughts and feelings that a piece of writing might have provoked in you, so that you can consider what you've learned about yourself with clarity. This important step weaves together your story with your reading and illuminates your destination. Exploring boundaries through books and literary journaling. My biggest lesson during my therapy sessions was how to set boundaries, something I had never been taught. To understand what I mean, we have to travel back in time to 1980s Nairobi, Kenya, where I grew up. My parents are second generation Gujarati Indian immigrants. There was a big community of us across East Africa, but the one in Nairobi was the largest. Hardworking, entrepreneurial, and ambitious. The first generation risked everything and traveled the Indian Ocean by boat in the early 1900s, despite not knowing whether they'd even survived the journey due to disease and food shortages. Yet they survived and even flourished. They established thriving businesses and operated farms and factories, setting future generations up for success. The single most important contributing factor was the close-knit community they formed. People helped each other to settle into their new homes, build businesses, and positively collaborate. There's always a trade-off, though. Communal spirit also bred orthodoxy. Issues like bullying, depression, dealing with teen angst, navigating relationships, and sex education were considered out of bounds. Conversations around mental health were unheard of, and there was no access to any form of support or therapy. For me, books filled this gap, and reading was the closest I came to feeling supported in my mental well-being. If someone within the community exhibited signs of depression or anxiety, the response was often to hide them away and keep their struggles secret to avoid risking shame. Depression and other mental health conditions were little understood. The fear of shame, what would people think, was installed in each of us and stopped us from being our most authentic selves. We created a society of people pleasers, the ripest space for anxiety to rear its head, and guilt too. Strong, thriving communities tend to be collectivist in nature, and people brought up in collectivist societies are more attuned to thinking about the group rather than the self. Difficulty in differentiating the self from the community can make it hard when it comes to setting boundaries. This is something I struggled with. I've been aware of the role I was primed to play for as long as I could remember, to be a good daughter, even if it meant putting aside my own desires and to always prioritize communal goals over personal ones. I often felt enmeshed. I'd feel guilty if I did something that went against what my family wanted, even if it was something important to me. And I'd feel guilty for setting a boundary that allowed me to feel safe, if doing so also meant that I could risk upsetting other members of my family or community. And there we go. That's another 15 minutes done. So you are now 1.5 hours into this book, Bibliotherapy, the Healing Power of Words by Bijal Shah. And we're toward the bottom of page 62. So that's how much you've already read. Congratulations to you. See you tomorrow.